Welcome back, Tiger fans, to Rock M Radio's football podcast. I'm Nate Edwards. That's Nathan Hurst. This is Before the Box Score, the live edition. Not only is it live, but because it is June 11th, it is also a mailbag air horn where we take questions directly from you. If you are in the live stream, first and foremost, thank you for being a subscriber to Rock M Plus. Second, your questions take priority. So if you want to go ahead and type them in here in the comments, we will answer those first and foremost. We do have a list of questions to pull from, and we will knock all of those out. Thank you for submitting them via Twitter, via social media, via email, and a couple of these. Thank you for wanting to know what we have to say. We'll get to it, and it'll be a good show. Nathan Hurst, how you doing, man?
I'm doing great. I think we made the live stream thing work. Apologies if we have if we're having technical issues, but we promise to get it fixed, get it working by the time the season starts. This is our second time going live, so we're messing around with the dials and the knobs and all that stuff. So I think it's working. We'll keep our fingers crossed. Otherwise doing good.
Yeah.
Didn't get too sunburned at the beach last week.
Yeah.
The 5-year-old got stung by jellyfish, so that wasn't awesome. But he's doing fine now. Otherwise, it was a nice break away from everything, and it's nice to get back in the swing of things and watch Eli Drinkwitz get back in the swing of nailing recruits. Down to the wall.
Yeah, man, that's a tremendous transition that I'm going to foil by asking, do you pee on jellyfish stains? Is that the remedy?
I think that is a remedy. That is not the one that we chose to use. It was a public beach. There were hundreds of other families around. What we did was just rub sand on it really good, and then rinse it off in the ocean. That is, thanks to Dr. Google, and that seemed to actually work really well. It kind of got whatever the venom or juice or whatever is on there, rubbed it off, washed it off pretty good, and within a few hours he was doing a lot better. So
nice.
Now, no offense to those who do or prefer peeing on their wounds. That to each their own. That wasn't ours, but
do what feels right, I guess, as long as it doesn't hurt anybody else. That's
and what won't get you arrested.
And won't get you arrested. Also that. Okay, so we will get to the questions, but first we had some recruiting. We had some recruiting going on. Eli Drinkwitz is back at it again. 2 commits, 2 days. That's it's not unheard of anymore, but it had been a quiet couple of weeks on the recruiting front, and so now you're starting to see a little bit of an uptick here after people have gone through their official visits over the past couple of weekends. So we got 2 guys. Number 1, Henry Fanuku, who is an interior lineman, and the best spelled version of Dylan Williams, safety, Alabama. Both 3-star kids, both high 3-star kids. What happens senior year, maybe they get bumped up, who knows? The big takeaway is that a lot of people want these guys. I did a breakdown of Henry Fanuku, which will be coming out, I believe, tomorrow. I'll get to Dylan Williams when I have some time. But Hurst, hey, we got 2 new guys, one on the offensive line, one on the defensive backfield. What are your thoughts?
I think they're both really, really solid pickups. They're as you mentioned, they're both 3 stars. But beyond that, what I look at first before I look at what their stars are, before I look at their huddle highlights, I look at who else has offered them, and that's what's really going to give you a much better feeling for the competition for the kid, and perhaps their projectability. Maybe they're not a finished project now, but who else thinks that this kid can go on to be a contributor at a top level program? And in the case of Fanuku, for sure, everybody wanted this guy. He just got on a visit to Ohio State this past week, or I think right after he visited Mizzou. He went to Columbus. He also had a Georgia offer. I believe he had a couple other offers, Power 5 offers in state in Texas. He's from Texas, so he's a high 3-star right now. I would not be shocked if the services bump him up just because of the offer list that he has. We'll see how he plays his senior year as well. Mizzou's not necessarily known for getting guys to take a bump up in their rankings after a commitment, but he's everyone wanted him. What's really interesting to me is a lot of times you'll see offensive linemen in high school play tackle, because that's usually where you want your best guy, your best athlete, your best offensive lineman to playing is your in your left tackle position. And so I would say most offensive linemen coming out of high school are playing left tackle or at least one of the tackles, and then they might have to transition if they fit better at guard. You kind of have to learn different, transition into that interior lineman spot. That's not the case for Fanuku. He has played guard as a junior. He played really well as a junior guard. So he's going to come in. He's going to know what position is his. He's going to be an interior lineman. There's not going to be any kind of they promised me I was going to play tackle and then they moved me late. He's a guard. It seems like he's comfortable with that. He knows what he's best at, and he's really good at it. So I think that will perhaps give him an advantage over other incoming offensive linemen as freshmen who may have to transition a little bit if they project as guard down the road and they're used to playing on the end of the line. It's gonna help him a lot, I think, and possibly set him up to see playing time earlier in his Mizzou career than some of the other guys that perhaps are higher rated but have to transition to a different position.
Yeah, I was watching his tape last night. Well, first you mentioned the offer list. Let's just go over the Power 4 offers because that's the shorter list to go through. In alphabetical order, it is Arkansas, Baylor, California, Florida, Florida State, Georgia, Houston, Kansas, LSU, Ole Miss, Ohio State, Oregon, Pittsburgh, SMU, TCU, Tennessee, Texas A&M, Texas Tech, USC. Missouri got them.
Those are the guys you want to be competing with. Those are the guys you want to be beating out for recruits.
Yeah.
And this is an opportunity to do it. And we did it.
Yeah. And, again, watching him, I don't know if he's the best offensive lineman on his team. It certainly looks like it. And I get why they put him at guard because, I'd report it anyway, 6'3", 295. He's built like a guard. That boy is quick, and they put him on the inside, and he is big. So when he pulls, like all of his highlights is him pulling left to right and smacking some end or some crashing linebacker or climbing to the second level and just erasing a safety. Like the dude can move. And when you have size like that, and obviously when you're 17, 18, you can project to more than what you currently are. If you have that size and you have that speed, that quickness, that is why teams are like, oh yeah, we can work with that. Hands a little hit or miss. He likes to engage high at a couple times, and most of the time that was as he was climbing to his second block, which I will forgive that. But man, if you have that combination of size and speed, yes, you want to be an offensive lineman. Yes, you can play in the SEC. Yes, an offensive line coach is like, I'll fix everything else. We'll run with it. So yeah, it's one of those things. It's like Ennis Rakestraw, right? Eli Drinkwitz's first win. Everyone on the outside of the program is like, why are you so excited about a 3-star? Because everybody wanted him and people saw what he could do. Missouri got him, and now he's in the NFL. So it's good. And yeah, I don't know, how he's going to project as he goes through the senior year or whatever growth spurt he has, or however the rankings shake out, doesn't really matter. Right now, we got him committed, and as long as he signs on the dotted line in December, I am happy. What do you know about Dylan Williams? This was just happened this afternoon. I have not really looked at any tape or anything, just other than he came in. Any thoughts off of his commitment?
I was able to take a look at some of his tape. He's kind of in the mold of Eli Drinkwitz's preferred defensive backs. He's big, 6'2", 180. He kind of he's long and lanky. He kind of looks like he has a frame where he's going to get even bigger than the 6'2", 180. He played cornerback and safety in high school, at least his junior year, and would play on the outside some. I definitely think he projects as a safety at the next level, just because of his size. I'm not sure he's going to be able to match up on the outside against SEC level receivers. Honestly, he kind of reminds me a lot of Dalen Carnell coming out of high school with the same size. Dude likes to hit. That's one thing that'll pop off of his tape when you do take a look at it. He is not shy, and in fact, it looks like he enjoys coming up into the box and laying running backs out when they break through that first line. He's the next guy. Sometimes he'll knock his own linebacker out of the way so he can make the tackle. That was the thing that really stuck out to me is he sticks his nose in there. He not only does he like to tackle, he likes to hit dudes and knock them backwards, which was really exciting to see. Is he going to be able to be a top level coverage guy downfield in the SEC? I don't think so. But I mean, Dalen Carnell's a great player, and he doesn't really do a whole lot of that either. So I could see him kind of projecting into that role. If perhaps he stays on the smaller side, I think he's going to get bigger. If he stays on the smaller side, perhaps you could play a strong safety position instead. Either way, he's going to be in the box more often than not, in my opinion, looking kind of projecting forward.
Nice. Well, congrats to both. Again, doesn't matter until you sign on the dotted line. And even then, you got to stick around. But it's pretty cool that at least Missouri earned their services coming out of high school or heading into their senior year before they come out of high school. So that's good news. Way to go. Eli Drinkwitz, just yet again, more recruiting wins. You'll love to see it. All right, let's get into the mailbag. We've got, it's like 11 questions plus whatever comes in from our participants in the live stream. Hurst, let's just hot potato it. We'll go back and forth. You just got to pick your question that you want. I'll mark it off so we don't ask the same one twice. But let's start with, let's start at the top. JR. JR asks, what do you think the usage will be like for the running backs without Schrader back there? As a reminder, we had 5 last year, and it was basically the Cody Schrader show with a couple cameos of Nate Pete during the non-conference. Hurst, why don't you kick this off? What's it going to look like without Schrader?
If we know anything about the running back usage in the Eli Drinkwitz era, it's one guy, and he finds his guy, and then he rides him as far as that running back will take him. We have 2 guys that are certainly going to compete for that top spot, Nate Noel and Marcus Carroll. I don't think it's going to be split 50-50 by any means. I'm not sure who's going to be the lead guy there. If I had to put money on it, I think it might be Nate Noel to start. But 2 years ago, I would have told you that Nate Pete was going to be the bell cow, and that didn't really turn out that way. So we'll see how that works out. I think they're going to give both guys equal opportunity to win the job in fall practice coming up, maybe even in the first couple of games. But if we're halfway through the season and they're 50-50 on number of carries and amount of yards, that sort of thing, I would be very surprised. I think he'll find the guy that he likes the most or the guy who fumbles the least. And ride that guy until, God forbid, he gets hurt or he gets benched for one reason or another. Thankfully, we haven't had too many guys benched. The guys that they had that Drinkwitz has found and has ridden have done the job, with the exception of 2 years ago when we was kind of back and forth and we weren't really sure what was going on. I don't think he really knew what he wanted to do either. I mean, Schrader eventually took over the job. It wasn't nearly what he ended up being last year. So yeah, he'll find somebody. He'll find one of the 2 guys, Noel or Carroll. They'll be the guy until they're not. Hopefully they'll just be the guy the whole time. Hopefully someone will prove to be the best guy, and that's going to be the guy.
We know Eli Drinkwitz likes one guy. We know he typically plays the oldest guy. We know he likes the guy who doesn't fumble and pass blocks the best. And we know that when he has started as senior, that guy has basically gone for 1,000 yards and then gone into the NFL. Now, Larry Roundtree was at 972 yards in 2020. If they had played a full 12 games, he would have had 1,000 yards. Tyler Beatty in 2021 finished with 1,604 yards on the ground. You ever forget about that? Like, I know 2021 wasn't a great year, but sometimes I forget about that. And then right above him, which was last year, was Cody Schrader, which finished with 1,627 yards as a senior running back. And then, of course, went the undrafted free agent route to the San Francisco 49ers. So if Eli Drinkwitz has a senior back, that guy is on pace for 1,000 yards in a 12-game season. We know that. And, oh, by the way, he has not one but 2 senior running backs on this team right now. Now, neither one of them have been on this team before. So whatever that means is whatever that's going to mean. But yeah, I think it's going to be kind of what you said. Give him a chance to figure out who's going to be it. You probably take the first 4 games, which is a very gentle ramp up into the season, to figure out who that guy is going to be, and then stick with him. So I just, yeah, to your point, Eli Drinkwitz is not a juggle your running back room kind of guy. He's just not. He wasn't that at App State. He hasn't been that at Mizzou. So we'll find one guy, and then the other one will be sad that he transferred here. But that's just how it is. He's going to play with winners, and that's what he does. So more of the same, and hopefully we see another 1,000-yard rusher, because just FYI, if you're looking at the top 10 most productive rushing seasons in Missouri football history, 2 of the top 3 happened in the past 2 years. Devin West is number 1, 1,703 yards in 1998. Then it's Cody Schrader. That is Tyler Beatty. So just throwing that out there. All right, Nathan Hurst, find a question. Let's ask it.
Next question from Levi. I have seen some talk about Mizzou's defense taking a step back, leading to an underperforming season. Ease my worry with why they'll be fine, or maybe it's valid. So Nate, what are your thoughts about, is the defense going to take a step back? If so, is that going to lead to an underperforming season, or are these worries overblown? Are they valid? What are your thoughts on the defense as a whole?
So let's talk about how it could work. First and foremost, number 1, Corey Batoon is a good defensive coordinator, and he calls a style that's similar to what Blake Baker ran the past 2 years. So it's not a philosophy change. Probably, some language might have changed. Obviously, some play calling tendencies are going to change. But in general, the philosophy and the tactics are probably going to be similar. You have a tremendous influx of talent. Okay, that's the other thing that I would point to. Johnny Walker is great. He's still here. Christian Williams is great. He's still here. Chuck Hicks, Tristan Newsom were awesome at the end of the year. They're still here. You add on top of that, Zion Young from Michigan State, Darius Smith from Georgia. Again, there's 4 defensive ends right there. You add Chris McClellan, who everybody wanted, and Sterling Webb, who was just a dark horse out of nowhere kind of player from New Mexico State, to pair with what we talked about a couple shows ago, just one of Marquise Gracial, Sam Williams, Jalen Marshall, or Justin Bodford. Like, there's your interior right there. You probably have 3, possibly even 4. So you shouldn't see a drop off there. Your linebackers are back. You add a Corey Flagg. You add a Khalil Jacobs, who's played in the system before. There's 4 right there. You have a rotation. Your corners, you brought in Toriana Pride, who's a former blue chipper. You still have Drayden Norwood, who balled out in the last 2 games of the year. Plus, you have Marcus Clark, who's been here a couple of years at the corner spots. And then, at the safeties, Joseph Charleston's still here. Marvin Burks had playing time. Dalen Carnell is still just a rocket on roller skates. Defensively, you have guys that can play who have played and have played at a high level. And the scheme is about the same. And that is how it could work. The reason this doesn't work is very simple. You lost 3 NFL caliber defensive backs. And you probably do not have 3 NFL caliber defensive backs replacing them. And if you look at, in general, success in the defense is experience in the secondary. And while Mizzou has experience, might not have the talent. So that's how it goes wrong, where a defensive line does everything it can to keep up what it did last year, and the corners let them down. That's how this fails. I don't know which way it's going to go. I know what I'd prefer, but that is my answer. Any thoughts? Different? Same? How do you view it?
Yeah, I mean, I think the defense is going to take a step back. I don't think there's really any way to avoid that, because, as you mentioned, the loss of 3 NFL draft picks in the secondary. Also, Darius Robinson, first-round draft pick, pass rusher. Yes, we brought in some talent, but are any of those guys a future first-round draft pick off the edge? I don't know. I hope so, but I'm not sure. So just the fact that we lost 4 NFL players off that defense and the defensive coordinator, all that attrition is, I think they're going to take a step back. Does that mean it's going to lead to an underperforming season? Not necessarily. It really depends on how big of a step back it's going to be, and then also how much better the offense is going to be this year than last year. If the offense is as good this year as last year and the defense steps back, yeah, we could see we could see a little bit of perhaps not reaching the full potential of what we hope this team can be. If the offense takes a step forward, we've got, we lost 2 offensive linemen, but we got 2 studs to replace them. All the receivers are back. The quarterback's back. Just talked about the running back situation. It seems to be pretty healthy at this point. If they take a step forward and the defense takes a little step back, I think there's still just going to be everything's still on the table for what this team can achieve. But I honestly see best case scenario. The defense is about as good as it was last year. That's really best case scenario, where Pride comes in and is a lockdown cornerback. One of our transfer defensive ends locks down a spot and can get 6-7 sacks. The defensive line, they find a good rotation and lock it up. They figure out the Batoon system quickly, and they kind of stay status quo. That's probably the best situation. I don't necessarily think it's going to be that case, but I don't think it has to be as good, because once again, I think the offense is going to if they can add an extra touchdown per game, even if the defense gives up an extra touchdown per game, it's going to even out.
Yeah. I mean, and just because you return people doesn't mean you get better. I know I've harped on returning production and how that in general means you get better year over year. I would point to the 2007 Missouri team and to the 2008 Missouri team. That team returned everybody. It returned everybody. Everybody. And the defense got like a little bit worse. Just a little bit. And they were stocked with NFL guys who got drafted. Striker Sulak is one I can think of off the top of my head. We forgot Tyron Hopper. He got drafted too. So that's five defensive players, one at every level that we're losing, at least, plus 3 in the defensive backs. So, I mean, yeah, there's a very good chance that it gets worse, but you do have an offense that's getting better. I think you nailed it. Last year, you'd say probably the defense was slightly better than the offense. And now this year, maybe the offense takes a huge step up and the defense takes a little bit step down. Like, it can happen. It can happen. So I'm with you on that one. I'm curious. I can't wait to see what Corey Batoon does. I can't wait to see what he does. It's going to be a lot of fun. Let's keep going. Alex asks, which specific game time are you most hyped for? Okay. So the schedule windows were released today, which is a new thing that the SEC can do with their new television revenue partner. So they released windows on which games are going to be released. So he wants to know, which specific game time are you most hyped for, such as Oklahoma at afternoon or evening? And what is your least favorite game time for this season? So Hurst, you go first.
Yeah, I think the two for me are pretty obvious. The first one, as you mentioned, Alex, is the Oklahoma afternoon or evening time. That's by far the biggest home game of the year anyway. And so the fact that it's not going to be at 11 a.m. Is awesome. Whether that ends up being an afternoon game or an evening game, I have a feeling it's going to be an evening game, 6 o'clock on ESPN or 7 o'clock on ABC. That would be really awesome. I think the last time we played on ABC was against Oklahoma at home at 7 p.m. In 2011 when we beat them, and they were number 1. Or 2011 they were number 1. And we beat them.
2010.
2010 or 11. 10. You're right. 2010. Yes. 2010. So that would be awesome. I'm very hyped about that, and the fact that it's not going to be at 11 a.m. The one my least favorite game time by far is the Auburn morning game time, which is homecoming. That just sucks. Homecoming is always one of my favorite days of the year, with everything that's going on that day, the parade, the whole everything. I love homecoming, and to have it in the morning just really puts a damper on that, because it just cuts out that much more time for the fun festivities in the morning. Homecoming scene, or the tailgating scene, is always way beyond hyped on homecoming. If the game's in the afternoon, it just gets a really nice build up all the way up until the time of the game. Even if we're playing a crappy team, which Auburn is not a crappy team, it's going to be a big game to begin with. So really, it was a disappointment that one was in the morning. But it is what it is. It'll still be a good game. I just wish they had pushed that one back a little bit.
I mean, you and I were in Mizzou for many years. Homecoming games in the morning I mean, you want to talk about a hungover band in normal circumstances. Boy, that 4:00 wake up call comes quick.
Into marching a 3-mile parade. It's just
Yeah.
brilliant. I am not in the parade anymore. I now enjoy watching the parade. I the band can. I don't feel bad for them. They chose that life, just as I did. So
This is
they knew what
this
they
is
were
how you
getting
earn your free ticket to the
Yes,
games, ladies and gentlemen.
Exactly.
I as a local who was also in marching band in high school, our directors would always make fun of Marching Mizzou. They're like, yeah, they play like twice and they just run through the entire thing because it's their parade. Who gives a crap? They got other things to do. Like those kids are way too hungover to play. Like this is for everybody. This is for everybody. Get to say hi, wave at the Golden Girls, see Truman and the cheer squad do their thing. Hear 3 and 4 the fight songs a couple times, and then go watch your kid in high school. So yeah, it's not about them. Yeah, I mean, just looking at this. So I don't mind morning games. I know it's not great for tailgating, but I don't tailgate anymore since I live in St. Louis and only go to a handful of games a year. If I were to go to the homecoming game, I'd be very pissed that it was the morning. So I'd agree with that one. But also morning games, just you get it over with, especially if it's like I'm looking at Boston College, right? 11:45. That's a good. Let's get this out of the way. If you lose, you find out early. If you beat the crap out of them, you can enjoy the rest of the day. Like that's perfect. What I am surprised, and I don't know if this is just because like a byproduct of moving from CBS to ESPN or ABC, ESPN, or maybe it's just because Mizzou's good now or perceived to be good. There's a lot of afternoon here, and I feel like 2020, 2021, 2022, it was all morning games for Mizzou. So this is not bad. I'm assuming UMass will be in the morning, or it should be. Alabama at night is cool, although you're going to be at Alabama, which sucks. Oklahoma at night is going to be cool. Yeah, I'd say Oklahoma would be my favorite, and then my least favorite is Auburn. So yeah, I'm with you on that one. That's good.
Great. All right. Next question from Craig. If Mizzou doesn't make the playoff this year, should I be disappointed that we missed our shot, or happy that we had one in the first place? Had a shot in the first place.
Philosophical, Craig. I like it. Let's go back to 2007, 2008. Because I feel like there's a lot of parallels with that squad and this one. With Brady Cook being Chase Daniel, with Luther Burden being Jeremy Macklin. You see, there's some continuity things that you can talk about here. Derek Washington leaving, new running backs coming in that are hyped, but we don't know. I will say as a youth in that summer between 2007 and 2008, I'm not going to speak for you, Hurst, but certainly for me, boy, I legitimately thought they were making the national championship. I really thought that. And part of that is a little bit of naivete of being, 21 and not understanding the politics of college football at the time. But I saw a returning team. I saw a relatively easy schedule or easier. Yes, Texas was going to be hard. Yeah, that's always hard. Yes, the Big 12 championship was a hurdle, but it's like, man, they're going to make it. And then of course they didn't, lost late against Oklahoma State, got the brakes beat off of them by Texas, lose to Kansas late, get the brakes beat off by Oklahoma, and then struggled to beat Northwestern. I would say that with the expanded playoff, without knowing exactly how it works, but just sitting here in the summer before the first time we had the expanded, I'm going to say if you are upset that they do not make the playoff, that is okay. I'm not going to tell you how to feel. I'm not going to, shame you for your emotional output. As I tell my 3-year-old, you're entitled to big feelings. Okay. It's just how do you work through it? I will tell you, to me, it's okay if you're upset that they missed the playoff. If you want to hold Eli Drinkwitz liable for missing the playoff, that's fine by me. But, to the question, Craig, you said specifically, if they don't make the playoff, should I be disappointed that we missed our shot or happy that we had one in the first place? I do think it is how they missed the playoff is the answer. If you go 10-2 with close losses to an Alabama and Oklahoma, and it just so happens to be one of those years where there's just a ton of one-loss teams, okay, like I'm not going to be disappointed that we only lost 2 games and didn't make it in. It's going to feel like you missed a shot, but whatever. If you lose 5 games with this roster in this schedule, yeah, then we're having different conversations. So there's a little bit of context to it, but if it goes how we're thinking, you lose 2 or 3 tight games, and like, we missed our shot. I think it's okay to be mad and at Eli Drinkwitz and this team. But frankly, I don't think it's going to be the last shot just because Mizzou's in the SEC and we recruit the way we do. So those are my thoughts. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm pretty much on the same page. I think context is entirely dependent here based on, if they miss the playoff, how disappointed should you be disappointed? How disappointed should you be? And also what kind of disappointment is it? Is it disappointment that the team didn't get the job done? Is it, God forbid, there's a rash of injuries and, 8 starters go down halfway through the season and they lose because they just, when you lose 8 starters, you lose games. And then that's a very different kind of disappointment. You can still be disappointed that they didn't exceed, meet their expectations, or at least meet the ceiling of what the team could be. But that's going to be a very different disappointment than they, lose to Alabama, lose to Oklahoma, go 10-2 and don't make it in, or maybe even drop a 3rd game to lose to an A&M, for example. That could very easily happen. This could very easily be a 9-3 team. That's still a good season, and no shame on losing to what could be a top 15 A&M team by the time they go to College Station. That's a different kind of disappointment. Are you entitled to be disappointed if that's the case? Yeah, absolutely. But it's going to look a little bit differently. Definitely be happy that the program is where it is right now, regardless of what happens this season. This is not where the program was in 2017, 2018. Even 2018, we were excited we're going to have a good year. We weren't thinking we were going to for sure be a top 10 team going into the season. We were hoping for 10 wins. We probably should have had 10 wins if you go back and look at it. But going into the season, we were just like, oh yeah, we'll be good this year. But we were not picked to be a top 10 team, which this team is picked to be. So be happy where we are right now. That doesn't mean you have to accept whatever happens and not have any negative emotions about it if it doesn't go the way we hope it goes. Unless Drinkwitz moves on to greener pastures somewhere else, there's no reason they can't be right back in this position next year or the year after that. We have a 5-star quarterback coming in. So is he going to start next year? Probably not. But, the future's bright for the program. And even if Drinkwitz does move on, he's shown that you can recruit at this high of a level at Mizzou. He's shown you can beat Ohio State in a New Year's Six Bowl at Mizzou. He's shown it can be done. Is it easy to do? Probably not super easy, but it can be done. That means the next guy coming in is, that's going to open up your candidate pool quite a bit before, as opposed to what it was when they hired Drinkwitz in the first place. So this will not be the last shot that Mizzou has to make the playoff. 12 teams do it. We've had plenty of seasons where we finish in the top 12. So be happy where we are, but let's just hope for the best. I'm not going to prepare for the worst, but I'm going to, gird the loins for not making the playoff at the same time. Is it the expectation for this team to make the playoff? I don't think it's. I think it's a far cry to say you should expect to make the playoff. Mizzou should probably never expect to make the playoff, at least not the stage that the program is right now. But can you hope for can you have legitimate hope for the playoff? Absolutely. That's kind of where I am right now. I hope for the playoff. We have an opportunity for the playoff. But to expect it, that might be a little bit too high of a.
The only reason I say you should expect it or think that it can happen is it's so rare that you have a team with this kind of talent in this kind of schedule all coalescing at the same time. Like that is some star-crossed happenstance right there. And I think have to is such a loaded phrase, but it really feels like you have to take advantage of something like this. So I think that's where most of that's coming from. But
for sure. But there's a big difference there between expecting it and thinking it can happen, right? I definitely think it can happen.
Sure.
I definitely think it probably should happen. based on all the factors that you just outlined there. But I still see a difference between that and expecting it. Does Ohio State expect to go to the playoff this year?
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Does Texas expect to go to the playoff this year? Absolutely. And should they, given all of the resources that those programs have? Yeah, they should expect that. That's what they're paying their coach $10+ million a year to do. Mizzou, should we expect this year to go to the playoff? Expect that. I wouldn't say expect, but we should hope. We should think we have a great shot at it. We should cheer for it all as much as we can, and have really high hopes for it for sure, because it very much should happen. I think it should, but I still don't know if it's an expectation or not.
Fair enough. From Chad, who is the one assistant coach on the Missouri football team that you think is the most irreplaceable of the current staff? Whew. I don't know. First, what do you think? What do you think?
Ooh, the assistant coaches.
Here, let's go over them real quick. Kirby Moore is OC. Corey Batoon's DC. We know that. Eric Link is special team coordinator and tight ends. I guess Kirby Moore is also the quarterback's coach. You have Curtis Looper at running backs coach. Jacob Peeler as wide receivers coach. Brandon Jones, we know him, offensive line. Brian Early, our edge coach, edge defensive line. Al Davis, the interior defensive line. DJ Smith is linebackers coach. Al Pogue is cornerbacks, and then Corey Batoon also does safety. So that's your roster. Who's the most irreplaceable of that?
Irreplaceable is hard to say, just because not being in the building on a daily basis, really knowing who is really responsible for driving the train and recruiting and developing game plans, all that stuff. Very hard to say. I'm gonna tweak your question just a little bit, Chad, and make it who would hurt me the most to lose, from what I know. And I think it comes down to two guys right now: Jacob Peeler, number one, wide receivers coach, and Brandon Jones, offensive line coach. I think those two guys are doing an outstanding job of recruiting, outstanding job of developing, especially in Jacob Peeler's case. I mean, if you just look at the guy's resume in terms of the receivers that he's put in the NFL, and will, after this year, put into the NFL, the guy knows what he's doing when it comes to recruiting and developing receivers. So that would really hurt. And then Brandon Jones is bringing it. He brought in the two top-rated offensive line transfers in the country this past year. He's developing Armand Minbu. He's bringing in freshman recruits. We just talked about one a few minutes ago. We've got several more very high, 4-star, 5-star guys on the radar. Jack Lang as well, also brought him as well. So, and is just, on the field, it's coached his guys to one of the best offensive lines in the country last year, and they're going to be one of the best offensive lines in the country this year as well. So, either of those guys would hurt me the most to lose. I'm sure there's plenty of other very valuable offenses. DJ Smith on the defensive side, just because as a recruiting coordinator, he has his hands in every recruiting pot that there is. So I think he would hurt quite a bit as well to lose him.
Yeah. No, I'm with you. It's tough to tell from a staff management standpoint. I mean, Casey Woods, case in point, Casey Woods was the social chair of the coaches. He and his wife were. So they planned all the get-togethers. They planned all like the cookouts and like stuff that the wives would do. And he leaves 2 years into it. Like, who replaced him? That's an important piece to have in any kind of workplace, let alone, one that's a coaching staff for college football. So it's tough to tell just based off of who gets listed as head recruiter for these guys, whether Rivals or 247 is accurate. I don't know. But I'm with you. Jacob Peeler would be my number one, just because you see his name on so many of the big recruits that we're bringing in. Missouri really didn't have a noticeable Florida presence or an effective Florida presence until he came onto the staff. And then you sign 3 blue chippers out of Florida. I don't see that as a coincidence. I really don't. And while I do think Brandon Jones is probably, from the football aspect, probably getting stuff done. My guy, Curtis Looper, man, I would be so sad if he left. He has been here since day one with the Eli Drinkwitz staff. You could argue his position group is the most important to an Eli Drinkwitz offense. And And he's got Larry Roundtree in the NFL. He's got Tyler Beatty in the NFL. He's got Cody Schrader in the NFL. He just brought in 2 former 1,000-yard rushers in the transfer portal, brought in 2 blue chippers, one from El Paso, both are from Texas. His place, by the way, he's a Stephen F. Austin guy. He's a Texas guy. He's bringing in 4-star running backs, and his running back room delivers. If Curtis Looper left, I would be very sad. So Jacob Peeler, I think, is probably my number 1, but a very close number 2, right there with Brandon Jones would be Mr. Looper, Coach Loop. Also, very good interviewer. He is one of the few guys. This is really doesn't matter to you guys, but he is one of the very few who will say your name back to you. All right. So when you raise your hand for a question, they'll call out your name and your the service that you work with. Most coaches just kind of tiredly move their head to you and try to find you. Loop says your name back and says, "Hey, how you doing?" It's little things, baby. It's little things. Okay, so let's keep going. You're next. You get the.
Yeah, I'm next. All right. So on Twitter, Brayshawn My Little John, which is an outstanding name. Please keep that. That's fantastic. Brayshawn My Little John asks, why would you rather KU misses the playoffs or Mizzou beats them in the first round at Thoreau? Would you rather they miss it completely or they play us first round and we beat them?
This is the easiest question on here. Brayshawn, My Little John. Thank you for asking it. I love it. I want 11 times out of 10 for Kansas to break through, make the playoff, pull Mizzou in their first round, come to Columbia and get beat. That would be orgasmic of an experience, orgasmic as a college football experience as you could possibly get in the very first playoff, beating your most hated rival on your home turf when they suck and they think they can do it. Give me every day. What do you want?
Fair enough. This is a win-win proposition for me and for any Mizzou fan. So there's no wrong answer here. But when I search down deep within my soul, and my thought is, I would much rather Kansas go 0-12 and continue for what they were for a decade as the worst Power 4, Power 5, really one of the worst programs in the entire country. I don't want them to win another game. I certainly don't want them to win 10, 11 games to get into the playoff. Sure, it'd be awesome if we beat them, but I don't want them to win another game the rest of their program history. So I'm going to pick, I want them to miss the playoff. I want them to miss it every year. I want them to never make the playoff. I want us to go every year, of course.
Yeah.
It would more sweet than beating them in the first round of the playoff is being in the playoff every year and saying, hey guys over there, are having fun rolling nickels or whatever you do in January, I guess. Well, I don't know what you do in Kansas when it gets cold outside. I don't know what you do when it gets hot outside either. But I'm gonna pick the first option. Don't make the playoff. We make it. They don't. Bye. See ya.
Yeah, I want their souls to hurt. I'm with you. I think we're both trying to get to the same thing. We want them to regret ever thinking about supporting this team and hating themselves every morning when they wake up for being a Kansas supporter. That's all we want. And it's 2 different ways of going about it. We've seen that when they do go 0-12, because that's what they do, 1 game, 2 games, whatever, they still like Kansas football. They still go to Kansas football. There's no breaking these idiots, okay? So what I want is to give them just a sliver of hope. Oh my God, we're good. Oh my, and then destroy them and make them regret having hope. Make them regret thinking that they're good, that they're better than us. That's what I want. But it gets you to the same place. It's all good. Excellent question. More Kansas questions, y'all. Send them our way. Okay, let's go with Adam. Now we're getting into kind of the theoretical, philosophical era of the questions here. Adam wants to know, which historical Missouri quarterback would you build a modern Missouri team around? I am just going to assume, or I'm going to caveat for Adam, 2024. So you have blown up the Missouri football team. You get to pick a quarterback from the past and bring them in to build your team around. And just let's go through the list. That's going to be, well, you can do Brady Cook. You can pick Connor Bazelak. Oh, this is going to be fun. You can pick Kelly Bryant. You can pick Drew Lock. You can pick Matty Mock. You can pick James Franklin or Blaine Gabbert or Chase Daniel or Brad Smith or Kirk Farmer or Corby Jones. And you know what? Pitch and Paul Chrisman, we'll throw him in there too. Right? Marlon Adler, let's throw him in there too. I don't care. Who are you going to pick?
It's a tough question. I mean, to me, there are two obvious answers, and it's two of the older ones on the list there. I'm kind of going back and forth between Brad Smith and Chase Daniel. I think ultimately, because I would love to see Brad Smith in a modern offense that fully takes advantage of his entire skill set, I'm going to go Brad Smith. Now, for those younger listeners and viewers that we have here that perhaps don't remember Brad Smith as well as Nate and I do, we were in college watching him as peers at the time. The dude was absolutely electric. I mean, is he Lamar Jackson? No, but he was not a whole lot short of what Lamar Jackson was in college in terms of on the ground, moving with his feet, electric. The offenses that Gary Pinkel chose to run with him he ran in three different types of offenses in the 4 years that he was a starter at Mizzou. The first one in 2003, or really 2002, 2003, was much more traditional and old school under center.
Drop back passer,
He did run quite a bit, but they were like mostly designed run plays that were not zone read. No zone reads, no read options, none of that stuff. Then his second stint in 2004 was a very ill-fated pro offense where they wanted to make him a broad drop back passer exclusively, and not call any designed runs for him at all, which is absolutely as absurd. It's more absurd than it even sounds coming out of my mouth for a guy who I just described as almost as electric with the ball in his hands as Lamar Jackson. That was a miserable failure in 2004. And then 2005, Pinkel realizes that we have to do something different because his job is on the hot seat. He goes, and in the offseason, he and offensive coordinator Dave Christensen go and hang out with a guy named Urban Meyer and learn about the spread offense and what that can do for you. They come back in 2005, spread it all the way out. And this is like old school spread offense where 4 to 5 wide every play. The offensive line is like 3 yards apart from each other. Outrageously spread. Throw it around, short passes, almost air raid, almost to the air raid extent, where very little downfield, a lot of short stuff. Some more designed plays, but still no read options, no zone reads, any of that stuff. That was honestly didn't really come into the zeitgeist of college football until a couple years later with Vince Young running the zone read. So I would love to see Brad Smith in Brady Cook's spot. I love you, Brady. I'm gonna put you on the bench today, just this season. We're gonna bring Brad Smith back in. I would love to see him run some zone reads where he can hand it off to the running back, or he can keep it. And those plays that Brady Cook gets 12 yards on, a really nice zone read. Brad Smith is taking that 60 yards to the house every time. That's how electric he was with the ball in his hands. And then that causes the entire defense to have to focus solely on Brad Smith. Then you got a guy named Luther Burden doing whatever he wants to do. You've got a guy named Theo Reese streaking down the sideline. You've got Mookie Cooper coming across the middle. So having Brad Smith in a modern offense with the playmakers that we have on the team. We had some good playmakers that played with Smith, but the design of the offense was completely different. It didn't really maximize any of their skill sets. Smith was not the best passer that we've had, and he was competent. I would call him a competent passer.
Yeah.
But he could hit wide open guys, and in a modern offense with his skill set, we would have a lot of wide open guys.
Yeah. Brad Smith is my answer, but it really comes down to Brad Smith or Chase Daniel, right? Because I feel like those are your two. You're either a Smith guy or a Chase Daniel guy. I think Chase would do well in any offense. Frankly, I think he was just that kind of quarterback. I do think, for the modern game, I might go Drew Lock. If we're viewing this as who are you subbing Brady Cook out for? Like Drew wasn't the most mobile guy. He could scoot when he needed to, but boy, he could. You want to talk about wide open dudes downfield? All right, Speedy Johnson, Theo Weiss, Mookie Cooper. You want to go deep, Mookie? We got a guy for you. That's Drew Lock. I think Brady Cook's a great passer. I think he's a great quarterback. But Drew's he's got the NFL arm. And boy, if you think Brady Cook looks great throwing to Luther Burden wide open, I think Drew Lock would look pretty good throwing a wide open Luther Burden too. So maybe I'd say Drew Lock. Love Chase Daniel though. I think he'd do great. But I want to see Drew. I want to see Drew with this group. So yeah, that'd be my answer.
Any of those three guys would be really fun. Really fun to see what Kirby Moore or what Drinkwitz could do with the talent that the receiving talent that this team has that was not on the field. I mean, Chase Daniel had Macklin. I mean, he had the closest to what we have now in Macklin, Rucker, Kaufman, and those are three of the best that Mizzou's had. But I would put this year's receiving core talent over that in terms of the overall depth. Those guys on the top end, sure, they can definitely compete, but the depth, 1 through 6, 1 through 7 receivers on this year's squad, definitely better for sure.
Yeah.
All right. Next question from David. What other teams should the SEC bring in? We have 16 teams as of in 10 days, 9 days. There will be 29. I can't do math. 19 days. 19 days. There are 30 days in June. As of July 1st, today's June 11th. As of July 1st, there will be 16 teams in the SEC. Should we bring in more teams? If we should, what teams should we bring in, Nate?
No more expansion. Just stop. I know I can't stop it, but I'm not pleased with the conference alignment of 2024. But if I have to bring in a team, I mean, let me just do this as not a conference commissioner, just as a dude who craves geographical continuity in my football conferences. It's easy to look at Florida State and Clemson. Obviously, the SEC already has Florida, already has South Carolina. Those two would make sense. Miami's way down there at the bottom of the state, so doesn't seem like a cultural fit or a football fit. I mean, football wise, I guess they recruit really well and have a dumb head coach, so maybe he does fit. But those two would be easy. I do think adding North Carolina could be interesting, but what do North Carolina and Duke add to the SEC? I'm not sure. Those are two basketball schools. That'd be a weird fit. So I guess I lean more. Let's bring in Oklahoma State, right? Let's bring in little brother for the Sooners. That takes you to 17, and then let's bring in Houston, Oklahoma State, and Houston. I feel like Houston is SEC as hell, right? That's a team with a rich history of cheating and scoring a ton of points. And, Tito Fertitta, their mega booster, likes to wheel and deal with the best of the yellow fella and all the other SEC bagmen out there. Like, I think culturally they'd be a good fit. Again, they're kind of a basketball school, but they did just, make a really smart football hire. And then Mike Gundy, and his OAN t-shirts are going to fit right in with the SEC. So yeah, let's bring in Oklahoma's little brother. Let's bring in Houston. That'd be fun. And we're already in those estates, and that's my answer. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think that you hit the two most obvious candidates, which are the two easiest fits, Clemson and Florida State. So if I had to pick two, I mean, I'm not a Florida fan. I'm not a South Carolina fan, so I don't care if they suddenly get more competition in their state. So if we're picking two, I mean, those are the two most obvious ones. If we're looking a little outside of the box, though, if we're not going to expand in states that we already have, dominion over, if you will, NC State and Virginia Tech would be my choices. North Carolina and Duke, yeah, those are more the name brands. They don't really. What do they add to the SEC? Not a whole lot, to be honest. I mean, academically, sure, that'd be great. Whatever. NC State and Virginia Tech just seem like better, more interesting cultural fits to the SEC if we are going to look outside of the current footprint. Oklahoma State just doesn't really excite me that much. Houston honestly doesn't really excite me that much either. We have 2 Texas schools already. I mean, would I yell and scream if we added those teams? No, probably not. But yeah, if not Florida State and Clemson, then NC State, Virginia Tech. If we're going to go bigger than 2, then I would take all 4 of those, call it a day, make it 20. God forbid.
Oh my God.
Eventually we're going to get to 32 teams total, and that's what it's going to be. So
West Virginia would also be a good fit. Those moonshine bootleggers out there, that's a good fit. Maybe not the best at any sport, but
they'll provide comic relief if nothing else.
There you go. Okay, let's go to Nick. Nick, take a breather, buddy. I am furious that Missouri State will soon be an FBS team, but I can't give a good reason why. Am I overreacting? If you hadn't heard, I think Missouri State's set to make the jump into Conference USA in like 4 years or something like that. I forget. Maybe next year. I don't know. They're coming up. So, Hurst, what are your thoughts?
It's not a big deal at all. The only effect that this will have on Mizzou is that we can no longer say we're the only FBS team in the state. And honestly, that might not be that bad of a thing to begin with. It might give Missouri a little bit of more legitimacy in terms of like, oh, we actually can support 2 FBS teams. The reason it's not a big deal is they will be in the same division in name only. The divide between the Conference USA and SEC in 2025, 2026, whenever they enter in, will be just as big, if not bigger, as the divide a few years ago was between FBS and FCS in the first place. Just in terms of TV, the money coming in, the types of players that both programs are going after, it's night and day. We will continue to not compete with them for recruits. If they happen to find a diamond in the rough and who has a really good season or 2, we could just bring that guy right on up to Columbia just fine. Could be a nice little feeder program.
Oh my God.
It is not going to affect Mizzou in any capacity whatsoever. So good for them. I'm not sure it's a great move for Missouri State, to be honest. I don't see how. I mean, they're certainly not going to compete. They can't compete in the FCS. I don't know how they're going to compete. Even though Conference USA is pretty trash, they're not going to get better. The program's not going to become more successful or more stable at a higher level than they were at the lower levels. So it kind of doesn't make. They're going to make some more money, but
Conference USA's TV deal is garbage. That's why teams keep cycling out. And if you're doing that, if they're making the move because they think that the proverbial gate is going to close at some point as far as transitioning from FCS to FBS, I get it. That's why Kennesaw made the jump. The way super conferences are being talked about and kind of the moves being made, I understand that it's got to be now or never. But I'm with Nick. I'm not furious, but I'm just like, that's annoying. That's so freaking annoying. That Missouri got to be the only FBS team in its state. Now that's no longer the case. That annoys me. I'm not furious, Nick. But if you want to be furious, that's fine. Have your feelings, and I'm going to encourage you to do that. But that is annoying. And their football team sucks. Their basketball team's okay. Also, Conzo Martin is their basketball coach, which is interesting. But they stink. My sister went to Missouri State. They stink. Their band's good. Everything else is bad. So I don't think we have to worry about anything other than just them being annoying. No, it's you. Your turn.
My turn. Yes. Jared, this is a big wife guy question here. You guys are married. How did you know it was the right time to propose to the right person? Jared. As a wife guy, how did you know it was the right time to become a wife guy?
Jared. Well, Jared, I hope this is because you got a momentous occasion happening in your life. So good luck. It's beautiful. How did I know? Well, I mean, right time and right person are two different questions. Right person? I know I've said this on the show before, so I'll just repeat myself. You gotta look at three things. Number one, do you like each other? Number two, do you love each other? Number three, do you do business well together? And I think a lot of people get hooked up on number three, right? Because you might like doing stuff with that person. There might be a lot of emotions and physical attraction to a person, but what's it like? What's it like when you have to do business? When you have to, you know, when you have a dog, how do the responsibilities shake out? That's a precursor for kid. When you're deciding where to eat, what are those conversations like? When you decide how to pay the bills, where to live, what are your political affiliations are? How, what's your endpoint? How do you view life? Those interactions of like things that you're going to run to in your entire life. You got to figure out what that's like. If you're 3 for 3, boom, lock it up, baby. With the understanding that people are, just understand that people aren't going to change, and if they change, it's going to be incremental. So like, understand that it's never going to be better, and is this the person that you want to deal with for the rest of your life? So yes, do it. Yeah, 2 out of 3 ain't bad either, I will say. But you really got to think about, do I want this person to meet other people in my life? Do I want to do things with this person? Do I want to do business with this person? Because that's the key. As to when to propose, don't ask me that. I probably dragged my feet way too long. I was trying to find the absolute perfect right moment when nothing bad had happened and everyone was happy, and not make a special event that's special enough to get her off to the side, but not special enough where she thinks she's coming. Boy, I dragged my feet way too long. And eventually I was just like, I'm tired of not being married. I want to change that. And kind of impromptu on my part, did a little quick pep talk in the mirror and made it happen. And very glad that I did, but it was not going the way I wanted to. So it just kind of hit me. I'm like, why am I waiting for the perfect moment when the perfect moment is making this happen? So I did. So there you go. Hurst, what about you?
Yeah, I mean, I think you nailed it with, as far as picking the right person. I mean, that the answer is going to obviously be different for everybody. Um, Finding someone to do business with is a great way to put it. There's so much more to being married to someone than the physical attraction, than the emotional attraction, than even just, do I like to hang out with this person on a daily and nightly basis? There are plenty of people I very much enjoy hanging out with and would probably hang out with on a daily basis that I would want to have nothing to do with when it comes to actually being married and legally bound to that person for in perpetuity. So is this person someone that you are willing to go to bat with and go to bat for on a not just a yearly basis for the rest of your life, but a daily basis? Do you feel comfortable? Do you feel confident? Do you feel led to if you're going to start a business, would you start a business with the person? It doesn't mean you have to start a business with your wife or your husband or your partner or whoever it is that you're locking yourself down to, but is that someone you would do that with? Is it are you comfortable with how they manage their finances? Is that something you've even talked about? Talk about finances before you even consider thinking about because that's a big part of future goals. Couples talk about, do we want to have kids? Do we want to not? Those are important things to talk about too. A lot of times they do not talk about what is your outlook on finances in general. How do you spend money? How do you save money? What are your goals? What are my goals? Are those compatible? Can we both be pushing towards those same goals at the same time? That's really important. That's not to say that being married is a business by any means, but it's an important part of being married is being on the same page ahead of time, so that you're not surprised 3 years down the road, 5 years down the road, when your partner comes to you and says, hey, I'm sorry, I just realized I spent $5,000 on a credit card, and we need to figure out what we're going to do with that. Or I've decided I want to quit my job because I hate it, and I just don't think I'm going to do anything. We don't have kids. I'm just going to hang out, not do anything, because I just don't want to work. That the last thing you want to be doing is blindsided by something like that down the road. So I'm getting on the same page right up front. That doesn't mean people can't, they can't have goals that change as their life changes. That happens all the time. But going into it, understanding where you are, where both of you are, and making sure that you're simpatico on that is very important. As far as the right time to propose, when you're ready, when that person, when your partner's ready, that's the right time. Otherwise, if you wait for the perfect time, there's never going to be a perfect time.
Never.
Just like having kids, there's never going to be a perfect time to have kids either. It's when you're ready, or when you think you might be ready, and you think hopefully they'll say yes. That's the time to do it. You don't spend it. My advice is don't spend a bunch of time, money, effort, energy in creating the perfect proposal scenario situation. Now, if your prospective partner has told you how they want to be proposed, by all means, try to meet those wishes as much as you can. In the case of my wife, she told me, if you propose publicly to me, I will say no matter what. Yeah. So I knew I wasn't planning on a public proposal, but I knew that was not going to be the way to get the answer that I wanted to come out of her mouth. So understand who it is that you're proposing to, and what do they want out of it. What experience are they hoping for, and maybe and that's a conversation to have as a prelude to this whole thing. Is finding out how they want to be proposed to, because the last thing you want to do is put them in an uncomfortable spot, where there's, because that can lead to resentment down the road if they felt like they were surprised in a way that they didn't want to be. So
yeah. All right, Jared, hope you took notes. And if you do propose, hopefully it goes well. If that's what you're getting at, hope it goes well.
Let us know. Got to see. Pics of the kids. We'll post them on the box score year 2029.
There you go. All right, last one. Again, this is more of a wife, kids thing. Which welcome to the Dad Pod. Here we are. This is from Ty. Ty says, my wife and I are expecting our first kid late this summer. That mazel's off. And so I'll be enjoying the season with a newborn. How do you watch football while also taking care of kids? And I'll throw in there mom as well. Hurst, take it away.
So you're not going to watch as much football this year as you did last year. I can guarantee you that. You're not going to watch as much football in the next 18 years as you did last year. So just go in prepared. That's okay. My firstborn was born 4 days before the first game of the 2018 Mizzou season against Wyoming. It kind of worked out because my parents were already coming into town because they were Wyoming grads. So we ended up not going to the game. We were going to go to the game, but they were like, oh yeah, we're going to have a baby, so I guess we're not going to go to that game. Or not 2018, 2017. It was here in Columbia. The Columbia game against Wyoming.
That's
18.
So
I had a 4-day-old baby in my lap while we were watching that game. Which that was the good Wyoming.
That was a good one. Yep.
Best advice with a newborn. Communicate with the mother of your child. Tell her, set clear, here's where I would like to, not must, need to. Here's where I would like to engage in football watching activities. How can we work our schedules together so that I can watch the Mizzou game? Then I can perhaps take over, and you can have a break, do a little bit of hot swap there. Mizzou game's done. I'll take the baby. You go for a walk, or you go take a nap, or you go do whatever it is that you need to do, because you just gave me 3 hours of break. Or we can all watch the game together, and I promise I'm not going to scream as loud and wake up the baby if they happen to be sleeping. That usually doesn't work out great, at least on my end. But communication is key. What do you need from me? What can I give you? How can we plan this out where you're able to get some of the football that you want to watch? Even if it's just one game a week, that's the Mizzou game. Maybe it's even on record. Maybe you have to record it and watch it at bedtime or at a different time during the day, whenever it works for your family. But communication is key 100%.
Yeah. So, my daughter is 2 months older than your son, and my youngest, I think, is 5 days older than yours. I think something like that. So yeah, we're in very close proximity there.
That was not planned, for those wondering.
No,
we did not get together and decide we were gonna have children at the same time.
No, that was a happy circumstance. So yeah, to her point, you're not going to watch as much football as you do, and maybe that's a good thing. And really, you're just not going to do anything that you used to do, and you got to be really comfortable with that, and you got to figure out what's important in your life, and power rank what's important in your life. Hopefully, your wife and kids are at the top, or your spouse and kids are at the top, and if not, think about it. But yeah, I mean, for God, my wife basically works a 24/7 job. She's on call for all sorts of clients. So that means that dad is usually taking care of kids. I can't tell you how many Missouri games in the past 6 years I have spent in a pumpkin patch or pushing my kid on a swing or, in the middle of the walk and just getting updates through Twitter or, YouTube TV on the phone when they're at a playground and I can steal a couple minutes. That's just how it is, man. Like if you want to raise good, productive citizens, it starts when they're kids, give them attention, put some of your stuff aside and understand that we do have on demand and things can be recorded. So it's a little bit different. I will say, to Her's point, he did a really good job of covering the newborn stuff because that's how it is. Once they get older though, just as a couple of tips, and really this can even go for, potential spouses of either gender, who maybe are unfamiliar with football, but know that you like it. Make it an event for the family with the same understanding that you're not going to get the full immersive experience, not going to be able to drop F-bombs like you used to, but like make it an immersive experience. And for example, and I'll give total credit to my wife for this idea. During the college football Saturdays, this is the only time, it's the only time my kids can have McDonald's in the living room and watch TV. Now they have to watch football, but it's the only time they get to do that. So they associate, hey, when it's football time, I get to eat McDonald's in the living room. How cool is that? Fun, football, family connectivity, right? I'm working. My oldest is almost, she's almost 6. She can read, so she likes to read like the words on the helmets, and like she asked me what UCLA was when we watched the UCLA game. Like you get to interact and they get to explore stuff and you get to kind of guide them through it. Again, your watching experience is less, but you're bringing in a new fan, right? You're making a new fan. You're making a new college football fan or a new Missouri fan. So it's going to be different. It's going to be hard. You're going to be very frustrated. I can tell you that. But to her point, set out your priorities. Say, this is what I would like to have happen. How can we make this happen? If it doesn't happen, we're all big boys, big girls. We're just going to deal with it. We'll get it next time. But thank God you live in 2024 where you can watch anything on demand and you can record anything. So, but yes, Ty, good. Congratulations. It's a big step. As 2 fathers of 2, will tell you 2 is a lot harder than 1, but 1 is a jolt to the system. So good luck, my man. You're going to be great.
And yeah, get YouTube TV or Hulu Live. Get the app on your phone. I can't tell you how many games I've watched rocking at 11 p.m., rocking a crying child, pop in an AirPod, listen, keep it quiet. You can watch it, kind of do this.
Yeah.
It's the wonders of modern living can help you out in this endeavor as well.
Yeah, absolutely. That's it. That's our mailbag. Thank you, everybody, for submitting questions. We appreciate it. Hopefully, we won't have to do this again. Hopefully, we have plenty of news to talk about. But if we do, we'll give you a heads up. As always, we appreciate the downloads and the subscriptions. You can leave a comment or rate us. We love all types of feedback from you all. You can follow us at Twitter. I'm Matt H. Edwards. He is at Burst to Hearst. And of course, you can follow the Rock M flagship at Rock M Nation and our podcasting outlet at Rock M Radio. We appreciate you tuning in this time. We'll try to do better next time. And until then, MIZ.
Thank you, everyone, for tuning in to Rock M Radio, a proud partner of Fans First Sports Network. Rock M Radio is the official podcast network of Rock M Plus, a new and exciting subscription service provided by me and the other voices of Rock M Radio. Please take a few moments to head over to rockm.plus and sign up for an account today. The cost is only $5 a month, and the benefits include access to our live podcast, a subscriber-only message board, weekly newsletters, and more. If you enjoyed this episode of Rock M Radio and would like to see more just like it beamed directly into your personal device, make sure to click the subscribe button below and tell your friends. Our podcast feed is available through the Apple Podcast app for iPhone, Google Podcast app for Android, whatever app you listen to your podcast. You can also find Rock M Radio on Spotify. If you're looking for a podcast about your favorite team that is not the Missouri Tigers, Fan First Sports Network is your answer. A full podcast network loaded with the team-specific podcasts covering Major League Baseball, the NFL, NHL, NBA, MLS, and more. We'll be back with more episodes of Rock M Radio coming to you soon.